Who is Prototype? This is probably the question that has been on the minds of Poppy Playtime fans for a long time. His appearance as well as his personality have not been revealed by the developers yet. That's why most of the users are expecting to see Prototype's personality in the 4th chapter of Poppy Playtime. Well, today I have put together for some theories and possible variations of Prototype's appearance. So be sure to watch this video until the end so you don't miss anything important. And here we go. Just recently I came across a very interesting excerpt, which in my opinion is very realistic, and maybe this excerpt is really from Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. In this excerpt, while following Poppy Doll, our character is attacked by Prototype himself, and judging by his appearance, he actually took the bodies of dead monsters in order to build a body for himself. Another interesting detail is the different voices in his speech, which we already noticed on one of the VHS tapes about Prototype. On the second leak, we were shown a warehouse that will be one of the locations of Poppy Playtime Chapter 4, but more importantly, we were shown the body with the already known hand and the side of the Prototype's face. And by the looks of it, his body will be huge, but if you think that's it, you're wrong. In the second leak, we can see the full face of the Prototype, and judging by the first 2 leaks, we can safely assume that the Prototype is not entirely made up of monsters that are taken away. And given the fact that we can clearly see human features, I have a hunch that the Prototype is one of Playtime Co.'s employees. On the third leak, we once again realize how huge the Prototype will be, and we also finally understand what shape its body will be. But what I am more interested in is some toy on its hand, and most likely it's one of those evil smiling critters toys, namely the Bobby Bear Hug toy. Well, on the 4th leak we see nothing new except that on top of the Prototype's body, there is Boxy Boo's body. It is still unknown if this is a real character or just a toy that looks like him, but based on what we know about the Prototype, I would venture to guess that it is Boxy Boo. But do you really think that these are all the leaks that could be related to the Prototype? Of course not, and today we're going to look at a few more such leaks. When passing Poppy Playtime Chapter 3, I personally have the most questions left a branch with such a character as Prototype. If you remember, in one of the very first videos on Poppy Playtime 3, we dared to assume that this character is not worth waiting for in this part of the game, because he is not particularly remarkable, but as we see, Prototype is almost a key character in the 3rd chapter. Together with CatNap and an army of mini versions of smiling critters, they scare almost all the characters in the game. To begin with, what is the Prototype? The Prototype is a black mechanical prosthetic that has a human bone at its base that acts as a joint. At the end of this prosthetic, there are long pointed fingers. Recall that Prototype is first mentioned to us in Poppy Playtime Chapter 1 on the black VHS tape as Experiment 1006 Prototype. Prototype was described to us as being willing to kill for no reason, as if it gives him pleasure. It should also be noted that Prototype has quite a bit of intelligence, as evidenced by one of the scientists on the VHS tape, where he describes how Prototype used something like a laser pointer to interfere with a security camera and escape from the room in which he was imprisoned. He also had good organizational skills, because he was the one who, according to our information, organized that famous The Hour of Joy, which was fatal for the Playtime factory. So, from here we can conclude that this prosthesis, which was shown to us in both the 2nd and 3rd parts of the game, is only a part of his body, but not his whole body. I believe that Prototype clearly has a plan and is clearly following it. Sometimes it feels like we are playing a game not Poppy Playtime, but Prototype Playtime, because when he needs to, he is even willing to sacrifice his most loyal assistant, the one who killed all the monsters, even those who simply did not agree with Prototype. I think you have already realized that we are talking about CatNap. The question arises, is he really so huge, scary, and strong that all monsters are afraid of him, even those who serve him, because they do not know what to expect from someone who has such power and intelligence? Let's try to understand all the information related to Prototype, which we received from chapter to chapter. Let's start at the very beginning with Poppy Playtime Chapter 1. At the end of the game, after the fall of Huggy Wuggy, we find the last VHS tape which tells us about Experiment 1006. I wondered what Experiment 1006 was. Many of the fans thought that Experiment 1006 was Huggy Wuggy, as it was almost the only monster we meet in the game, and none of the players noticed the faint image of a hand on the screen. So, in the VHS tape we learn that a mysterious scientist, now we can assume that this scientist was Dr. Harley Sawyer, is making a final recording of Experiment 1006 called Prototype, and on this recording he highlights his core skills, namely coordination and cooperation. These skills are observed in all representatives of his species. What exactly this species is, we are not told. We can only assume that this species was all known monsters, or only intelligent monsters, like Prototype or Poppy Doll. The skills mentioned above were apparently used by Prototype during the Hour of Joy, and judging by the shouting in the background that can be heard when playing the VHS tape, we can tell that it was recorded during this event and that it was organized by Prototype's hands.
Final log. In relation, Experiment 1006, the Prototype. Coordination and cooperation is evidently within his skill set, as well as the skill set of all other experiments of his type. Though still missing, today's events are no doubt in relation to him. His absence was a flaw in the scientific process, which should have under no circumstances been left unaccounted for. That's why I'm making this log, so that the same mistake won't be made twice. Any future experiments will need to be contained and disposed of in a secure location. I'm not worried about myself. One breakthrough and I'll be back. We must forge onwards in the name of science, whether those who are beneath us understand it or not. End of...
Then we move smoothly to the second part of our favorite game, Poppy Playtime, and here we already see the first appearance of Prototype. At that time, a lot of fans had a lot of opinions about what kind of hand was it, why did it steal the remains of Mommy Longlegs, and why was it added to the game at all. But the latest VHS tape has clarified things a bit. This VHS tape shows the hand more clearly than in the first part of the game, and here the scientist shares his observations, noting the high intelligence of Prototype after his attempt to escape, because he tried to pull off an interesting idea, creating a laser pointer out of an alarm clock. That is, here the scientist notes Prototype's high level of intelligence, indicating that he is capable of not only developing plans, but is also an excellent inventor.
Log code 08502. In relation, Experiment 1006, the Prototype. A close call occurred this week in which he nearly breached containment. The Prototype seemingly disassembled the digital alarm clock within his room and utilized the battery, along with several other components, to create a laser pointer, which he then fired into the security camera, disabling it. These actions allowed him 28.3 seconds completely unmonitored. Once function returned to the camera, the room appeared to be empty. One surveillance specialist went in to confirm his absence. However, upon opening the door, she realized that the Prototype had hidden in one of the camera's blind spots. The Prototype attempted to escape through the open door. However, another surveillance specialist was able to remotely relock the door, despite the other specialist still being inside. One casualty occurred. The Prototype seems to possess an unprecedented level of intelligence, beyond that of all other test subjects, as well as an alarming willingness to commit violence. Further suppression treatments will need to be enacted to ensure that no other experiments develop these qualities. Experiment 1170, Huggy Wuggy, remains the optimal outcome due to his sufficient intelligence paired with maximum obedience. End of log.
All fans have an opinion that if Prototype was kept in a cage under video surveillance, then most likely in this or the next chapter, we will be shown footage from this camera, but neither in the second nor in the third chapter we did not see them. And now we are approaching the third part of the game. Here, in the penultimate VHS tape, we hear a full dialogue between Prototype and the scientist Dr. Harley Sawyer. As we listen to this VHS tape, we learn that Prototype is stubborn and reluctant to make contact, suggesting that some mistakes have been made during the experiments that led to his behavior. Prototype makes it clear that he is against these experiments. Just before the end of the conversation, Prototype wonders what the purpose of the experiments is, and the scientist tells him that there is a secret hidden in him, and that he will get to it at any cost.
Log code 24459. In relation, Experiment 1006. The Prototype. Stubborn as he is, and always silent with each passing session, I'm still uncovering fresh data nonetheless. Today's discovery... End of log.
Ready to talk now, are you? I possess
a question.
Go ahead.
Do you feel anything?
This question referred to what exactly?
You stick us,
Beat us.
tear at flesh.
Do you feel it? There's a secret inside you, 1006. Valuable beyond all measure. I cut and prod and burn at it, and I get closer with each session. So speak, or don't. Fight, or give in. Regardless, I learn something new about you every day. It excites me.
Thank you.
You thank me?
Absolutely.
I learn something new about you every day.
The attentive players could also notice that Prototype uses different voices during this conversation, which he could also apply to our character during that mysterious call. I think that you all were also struck by the death of the main character of the third part of Poppy Playtime CatNap, but what struck me the most was that he died at the hands of his master, the one he worshipped and protected throughout his life. CatNap created a cult to Prototype. We all remember the location where the corpses of different monsters are located, and he destroyed all those who were against Prototype and even those who did not support it. CatNap did not spare even his friends from smiling critters. He killed them all, leaving only a part of Dog Day. I'll specify one detail, that we are not talking about the employees who created monsters and did the most horrible experiments on them. And in the end, they paid from these monsters. I have two assumptions. The first one is that Prototype is the main villain, that it was because of him that all the troubles in Playtime happened. And my second assumption is that Playtime employees are to blame for everything, and they are to blame for conducting ruthless experiments, and Prototype acts as a benefactor and wants to prevent the abuse of toys. But after seeing the scene at the end of Chapter 3 where Prototype kills his henchman CatNap, completely disproves my second assumption. To be honest, I got goosebumps while going through this scene. Let's go through the victims of interest and see if Prototype was involved in the deaths of these characters. Let's start with everyone's favorite Huggy Waggy. Many are still wondering where he's gone. After all, in Poppy Playtime Chapter 3, we see him only during our hallucinations. In Chapter 2, in one of the locations on the wall, we could see wisps of hair and traces of blood leading to a pipe. What could that mean? I would venture to guess that after Huggy Waggy fell down, Prototype sacked him and left a trail of blood and hair from our favorite blue monster. The next character to fall victim to Prototype is Mommy Longlegs, but here we can clearly see that he drags away her remains after she dies. But here we can highlight one interesting thing. Before his death, Mommy Longlegs tells us that he will make her a part of him.
What have you done? You make me part of you! You can't do this to me!
As we can guess, he is Prototype, so why does he want to make the dead monsters part of himself? I dare say he feeds off their energy and takes over the monster's best abilities, or he simply builds himself a new body. I think that Huggy Waggy and Mommy Longlegs are not the only victims that Prototype has taken for himself. I can assume that Miss Delight from the third part will also become a donor for him, but we should not forget about the victims that CatNap presented to him. But why does CatNap serve Prototype? For CatNap, Prototype is not just a friend or partner, he is a god. He built a whole altar for him, where he brought all the monsters he killed especially for Prototype. You will ask me why CatNap is so fond of Prototype that he even killed all his friends. And I will answer you, being not a monster yet, but a little kid named Theodore Gramble. He already had a connection with Prototype. He was the one who tried to help him escape from the orphanage, so he remembered him as his savior. And after the boy was turned into a monster, he started asking for help from his savior. Prototype is definitely the most mysterious character in Poppy Playtime. All fans, including me, are waiting to see his face in the 4th chapter, because among his fans there are a lot of theories and various plums about how he can look like, but which of them is true? Only Mob Entertainment Team will be able to answer. So, which theory do you like the most? What do you think Prototype will look like? Be sure to share your opinion in the comments, and also tell me what theories you know. I'll be happy to read them. Like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos. I want to wish everyone success and good luck, and bye-bye.